Welcome to the Ear to the Ground with the Grindstone, Episode 7. It's been a while, life has gotten a bit in the way with work, spring sports, etc. A lot has happened since we last chatted. There's been hours of amazing music, upcoming releases, and tours. Let's dig in. First off, much of this feature is focused on all the great music the professionals are putting out there. I would be remiss to not mention my own stuff. I've done quite a bit of writing and recording back in my pre-parenting days using some old school shareware multi-track software. Unfortunately, the source files are on an old computer that I'll need to get pretty creative to access, but I had burnt 6 songs to a CD that I ended up uploading to my YouTube channel. Certainly, they're a bit sloppy, but they're not bad. One actually got minor acclaim, making editors' picks on Washington Post MP3 site back when it was a thing. Definitely want to get back into writing and recording, but in the meantime, please give these a listen. Speaking of music from the past, I was walking the dog in March and noticed Force of Music had mentioned a familiar band in his weekly list of new releases. First of all, I'd like to say I really appreciate this Twitter feature, which really helps keep track of what's going on a week-to-week basis. Anyway, back to the band. I was working out of town on an IT project outside of Boston in the late 90s. This was a pretty brutal time personally, but fertile creatively, as is often the case. I had bought my current Taylor guitar at the Framingham Guitar Center and was writing a ton of sad bastard shit. In fact, NYC was a song about stopping by the city to visit friends on the way home from that project. While I was up in Massachusetts, some friends who were from the company's Boston office invited me to go see a band, Say Zuzu, out in Brookline. My colleagues may have been friends with the band or familiar with them, I can't quite recall. I definitely became a big fan. I bought a few of their CDs and I wore out one of them, Highway Signs and Driving Songs. I never really got to see them play again. Things back then were quite different. It was difficult to keep up with the regional bands like that. They released a couple of live albums, but it sounds like it kind of fizzled out. Well, lo and behold, they released a brand new album after 20 years. No Time to Lose, a title that clearly pretty much wrote itself. It's a super cool story made even more poignant, as I can't help but feel some parallel, having recently started getting back into being much more intentional musically, in whatever capacity you want to call this. But on top of all that, the album kicks ass. It will certainly be a candidate for my top album list. I hope you guys check them out. As for music from bands I didn't last see 25 years ago, this has been a really big couple of months for releases. Band of Heathens and Lucero put out a couple of really good roots rock albums, Simple Things and Should Have Learned by Now, respectively. For you fans of Billy Strings, he plays on a terrific bluegrass album by Michael Cleveland called Loving of the Game, which also features Vince Gill and Bela Fleck, among others. Billy also added to April 28's somewhat unprecedented release haul by putting out California Sober with none other than Willie himself. Things have been a bit busy for Willie. He also played on Summertime, a new single from Amanda Shires off her new album that comes out in June. This album features Bobbie Nelson, Willie's sister, who recently passed away. I was a huge fan of last year's Take It Like a Man, and this one, produced by Lawrence Rothman, is sure to be phenomenal as well. This weekend at the Hollywood Bowl is a 2-day Willie tribute concert celebrating his 90th birthday. It's basically a who's who of country and Americana and will be amazing. Happy birthday, Willie. In further Willie Nelson tribute news, 428 also brings One Night in Texas, the next Waltz's tribute to the Red-Headed Stranger. The concert features a ton of great artists and covers, including Margo Price, Robert O'Keefe, Vincent Neil Emerson, Steve Earle, Ray Wylie, and a ton of others. Margo absolutely slays Shotgun Willie. Plenty of other news in the Isbell Shires household. Jason is prepping for his own release, Weathervanes, out 2 weeks before his wife's release in June. I'm a big fan of all the singles that have come out, but I gotta tell you, there's been a lot of buzz around the latest, Cast Iron Skillet. The reality is the guy couldn't write a bad song left-handed, and it's probably going to be a fun rivalry sitting at the breakfast table in a couple of months. Speaking of the new singles, check out Instagram for Jack White's version of Death Wish. Lastly, as most have likely seen, Sam Jones put out a documentary that covered the making of Jason's prior album, Reunions. It's a very honest glimpse into their personal lives and Jason's creative process and how he works with the 400 unit. It's a much watch on Max, or whatever HBO is called nowadays. Sticking with the Isbell theme, the Drive-By Truckers announced a reissue of their landmark album, The Dirty South, set to come out on June 16th. One of their albums that featured Jason Isbell as writer, guitarist, and vocalist is one of the very best in their catalog. The reissue, dubbed The Dirty South Complete, is a bit of a director's cut with 3 additional tracks, including TVA and The Great Car Dealer War off of Fine Print and Goose's Field Road off of Brighter Than Creation's Dark, with the songs resequenced. It will be interesting to see how the album flows with the new ones and the new sequencing. While I'm talking about the Drive-By Truckers, it's worth noting some 930 Club news. I've been fortunate to see quite a few shows at the current iteration in DC. Sunvolt, Dismemberment Plan, Justin Towns Earle, Ryan Adams for a bit of a drunken show, sadly him more than me, and Sebadoh and the aforementioned Drive-By Truckers. to name just a few. Unfortunately, I never got the original version, which was steeped in music lore, debuting quite a few amazing bands. Fast forward to 2023, and Dave Grohl has built a replica of the old venue, adjacent to the current second-generation one, called the Atlantis. Shows start May 30th with the Foo Fighters and include a ton of excellent other bands. Pixies, Spoon, the Walkmen, Yo Tango, Jeff Tweedy, Maggie Rogers, Gary Clark Jr., and the Drive-By Truckers are all part of the first run of shows. The Drive-By Truckers have had a reputation of being extremely loud live. To be honest, I didn't really notice when I saw them, but if true, folks going to see them at a 400-person venue might want to double up on the ear protection. These shows and the project in general snuck on me a little bit. I believe they're completely sold out, but it will certainly be nice to add another venue option to the DC area. Another busy artist with ties to Jason Isbell and the 400 unit is Drayton Farley. I had posted quite a bit in anticipation of his 20 on High release, and it did not disappoint. Definitely will be a candidate for Grindstone Album of the Year when all is said and done. As most know, it was produced by Sadler Vaden with some of the 400 unit crew. In addition, our Vinyl got the band back together for a stripped-down set of 4 songs, which are similarly great. I was fortunate enough to see Drayton at the Songbird Music House in D.C. for a solo show. It was a cool venue and a great show. Opening for Drayton was a cool new artist, Caden Kellum, who is very talented as well. His album, A Fool's Pipe Dream, was really good last year, and he did play a new song at this show. Hopefully a new album is in the works. I've got video from the show for both of them, so make sure you check it out. I mentioned the Our Vinyl session for Drayton, and they're featuring another Grindstone favorite, Miko Marks. As I was compiling last year's top 10 albums, I had a couple of late additions. Nadeem the Artist came in and wrestled the top spot in the absolute last minute possible from American Aquarium's Chickamaucomico. While it came out a bit earlier in the year, I first heard Miko Marks Feel Like Going Home in the last couple of weeks of last year, and suddenly my top 10 became a top 11. Anyway, she's super talented, and the session sounds amazing. Also, don't forget to check out the J.R. Carroll Our Vinyl session as well. Another album that stands to make the Grindstone Best of 2023 is Rich Henderson's Fallacies in 4-Letter Words. Rich seems like a good dude on Twitter as well. Make sure you check out the album and get out and see him on the road. J.D. Clayton's Long Way From Home came up big this week. I listened to it when it came out in January, but revisited it this past week at the recommendation of some of my Twitter peeps. It is absolutely fantastic and definitely a candidate for end of the year lists. Also a favorite is Bottle Cap Mountain, Oh Fantastic Melancholy. Part rock, part indie alternative, and part old school metal, it's got something for everyone. They recently played a show with another good dude and Grindstone favorite, Matt Durda and the High Watts. If you're in the Chicago area, make sure you check both of them out. I posted about the Wilson Springs Hotel single For What It's Worth when it came out, as it definitely drew my attention immediately. I was eagerly anticipating the entire album, Old Thoughts and Memories, and it did not disappoint. It's well worth checking out. They're out of Richmond, Virginia, so I'm hoping I'll be able to get to see them soon. April 28th was a big release date that I've been looking forward to for quite some time. Dave Hawes released Drive It Like It's Stolen, Mia Byrne, Rhinestone Tomboy, Joey Ladakun, Proof of Life, The National, First Two Pages of Frankenstein, Evan Honer, West on I-10, Country Westerns, Forgive the City, Darren Jesse, Central Bridge, Semi K, Anana, Del Barber, Almanac, Mike Frazier, Another Night, Another Sunrise, and Josh Ritter, Spectral Lines. It's been fun making my way through all of these great records. Other great records that came out since we last chatted are Boy Genius, The Record, The Hold Steady, Price of Progress, Rustin Kelly, The Weakness, Matt Moran, Heartbreak Kid, Acoustic Sessions, Ben DeLacour, Sweet Hanadonia, and Mason and the Gin Line, Sungray. My man, the Ferdy Main, released the last piece of music under that moniker, Chase That Jackrabbit, an EP with some bangers. I really like She's a Hole and You Wearing Dresses. He will continue to put out stuff under the Turner Porter name. Look for more music as well as his Country Folk Waves playlist that is a great source for great Americana tunes, and I found quite a bit of new to me stuff from it. Note, I myself am pulling together my own Apple playlist of bangers thus far from 2023. Look for that shortly. All of these albums I mentioned are solid candidates for Album of the Year. It's going to be a bit rough to whittle things down and still have 7 months to go. Great job, guys. At the end of March, Liv collaborator Squeeze Mason held their album release show for the Astro Ballroom, with Liv performing Titan and Fishing for the Blues. She, along with pal and producer Van Plating, will be holding their own release party concert for Young, Dumb, and In Love next weekend, 5, 6, and 5, 7 at Liv's Family Farm. It should be a great time. Don't forget Van is wrapping up her upcoming project, Orange Blossom Child. At least one of the guests will be Shelby Lee Lowe. It's going to be a good one. On the tour front, Government Mule is embarking on another Dark Side of the Mule tour. Their album of the same name from a while ago contained a bunch of Pink Floyd covers, and as a Pink Floyd fan, was one of my favorites. Check out the album and check them out on tour. I believe one of their stops is Red Rocks, which would absolutely be a bucket list event for me. Sunvolt will hit the road this summer with a tour that plays all country royalty, Trace, from top to bottom, along with songs that pay homage to Doug Sam. A set list that celebrates 28 years of Sunvolt. Blast from the Past alt country artists Peter Bruntnell and Anders Parker support during varying stops on the tour. Make sure you get out and see them. It should be an amazing show. Lastly, I would like to congratulate Adeem the Artist on their upcoming Opry show. Adeem's White Trash Revelry was the Grindstone #1 album of the year. The honor is well deserved. There is one podcast I'd like to mention. Records Revisited had My Politic on to discuss Town Van Zant's self-titled LP. I haven't been able to check it out yet, but I can't think of a better match than one of my favorite current writers discussing one of my favorites of all time. Can't wait to listen to it. Before we close, I'd like to give a shout out to the Twitter community. I've been doing this for roughly 5 months, and it's been amazing how many cool people I meet and interact with on a daily basis on that platform. As most of you know, I've got a ton of active kids doing sports, etc., which unfortunately has kept me from seeing shows, and there have been a lot of them I've missed. One specific one was Pony Bradshaw in DC that I couldn't make due to my son's high school baseball game. Definitely a bit of a dagger as I've become a fan. I wanted to do my part and buy a shirt, but there weren't any online, just vinyl. I was reminded that Pony had merch stolen on tour, which really sucks, and that's why they didn't have anything to sell online at the show, but they did have some at the shows. Well, shout out to Try Daddy Phil, who's headed to a show in May and offered to pick one up for me. Pretty generous gesture that I truly appreciated. It's moments like that, or bullshitting with BJ Barham about how much my Hokies are better than his Wolfpack, with Rich O'Toole about beans and chili and breakfast tacos, or talking with My Politics Cast and Govney about Ian No album recommendations that make Twitter enjoyable, and hopefully we can together keep it fully out of the shitter. Alright, I'm done with my case of I love you mans. That's it for today. Thanks for listening and I hope you enjoy. As always, like this video, follow me on Twitter, make sure you retweet what you like, and make sure you subscribe on YouTube so you're notified when I post any new content. Tell your family, tell your friends, make new friends and tell them. Make enemies and tell them as well.